As a Lakota woman, as a girl, as a young girl, I was taught certain things that I could and could not do, and it was always in the group with males or with adults. What I could do and couldn't do in the presence of others. And because I grew up in a one-room, two-room house, one area was the sleeping area. But that in itself is a good example of how the Lakota male and female are separated and have their own area, their own roles, responsibilities. But we were never allowed, my sisters and I had our own sleeping area, and where we kept our clothes, everything, our personal belongings. We had an area. That was our area. It was understood that we kept our area clean, and then my brothers had their own. I have an older brother and a younger brother, and their area was similar to ours. But what we could not do was go over to their area, especially with the girls. We could not go over to my brothers and lay on the bed or dig around in their stuff. That was forbidden. We were not allowed, and they couldn't do that with us. So in a way, I think that established the boundaries of what you could do with the opposite sex. And then my parents had their own sleeping area, but that was where we were all able to go. We could lay on my parents' bed. We could lay there at night if they told stories or different things, So that was kind of the area where we were able to be at, we were allowed to be. And because of the boundaries, we were told as young children, small children, we could play with each other. We could go outside and, go sledding, whatever, as little children together. But as we got a little bit older, especially when we got into puberty, boy, there were some strict boundaries set of what we could do with our male relatives and them with us. We could not at any time just tease them. We at a certain point we could not tease them in a way that was often that would be seen as inappropriate, and they couldn't do the same with us. We could not touch them physically. They could not touch us physically. They could not come into our area, our sleeping area, and sit on the beds, anything, because the belief, the teaching is that our spirit is different from theirs, and our power is different from theirs. To mingle them is now to bring something into that power that would not be good, And I see the abuse of that today. We no longer observe those, so we have so much of what I think is like our domestic violence, child abuse. We have more cases of that, and I think it's because somewhere we've had a breakdown. Well, we do have a breakdown. As a young girl growing up, I had these roles, these responsibilities to always observe that, or else I would be, they would, my mother especially, my mother, my aunties, they would always correct me. They wouldn't get after me, but they would just, there was understood that a certain look meant you couldn't do that. Or sometimes if it was really not very good, kind of bad, then they would take us aside and tell us. Or sometimes as a whole, with my two sisters and I, they'd sit us down and maybe tell us a story about, something that could happen or that happened to somebody when they did this. And so the stories were always a lesson, a story. They were funny, they were entertaining, but at the same time, as you got older, the same stories were told throughout your development. And each time it was told, you understood more of that story. It wasn't just to entertain, but there was something in that story that you needed to know. And that, as a Lakota woman, that is one of my roles, is to know those stories for the young women, so that I can share them, and when they needed to have maybe some clarification about their roles, responsibilities as a female, then I would be able to share stories. So it's not harsh. I'm not getting down on them. I'm not being critical, but in a good way, I'm teaching them this is the way it should be. This is the way it was and it should be. And same with the males. You would never have a male discipline a young girl or a young woman. That is not their place. A young woman, or myself, I would never discipline one of my young male relatives. I would leave that to one of my male relatives, uncle, older brother, whoever, because that's their role. They understand and they know, how they should talk to that male. And even our language identifies us by gender. There are words that women use that men do not use. So, it's not that it's a segregation type of thing, but it's a respect so that there's no temptation. There's no, anything that could happen if these are not observed.